Somewhere in a drawer in your house, there is a photograph of you. You are maybe 2 years old. There is food smeared across your face. Someone is laughing behind the camera. You have no memory of this moment. Not the food, not the laughter, not the room you were sitting in. You were there. You were awake. You were forming new neural connections faster than you ever will again in your entire life. And still, that day is gone. Ask most people why, and they will tell you the same thing. Babies just do not remember things yet. That answer feels obvious. It is also wrong. The real reason is far stranger, and it has almost nothing to do with your brain failing to record the moment. Here is the reframe. Babies remember constantly. A 3-month-old can recognize their mother's face within a fraction of a second. A 6-month-old remembers a toy from a game played a week earlier. A 9-month-old can recall the exact sequence of steps needed to make a bell ring on a hidden lever. These are memories, real ones, formed by a real brain. So if babies can remember, why can you not remember being one? The phenomenon has an actual name. Psychologists call it infantile amnesia. It describes the strange, almost universal wall that sits somewhere around age 3 or 4, before which most adults cannot recall a single specific, personal event. Not because the events did not happen, because something about how those memories were stored makes them unreachable later, like files saved in a format your current operating system can no longer open. To understand why, it helps to look at one of the strangest case studies in the history of neuroscience. In the 1950s, a man known publicly only by his initials, HM, had parts of his hippocampus surgically removed to stop severe seizures. The surgery worked, the seizures stopped, but something else stopped too. HM could no longer form new long-term memories at all. He could hold a conversation, then forget it had ever happened minutes later. The neuropsychologist Brenda Milner studied him for decades and proved, conclusively, that the hippocampus is not just involved in memory. It is the structure responsible for converting a passing experience into something you can carry forward for years. Without it, life becomes an endless, unconnected present. Your hippocampus, the structure most responsible for stitching moments into long-term, retrievable memory, is one of the last major brain regions to fully mature. In the first few years of life, it is doing something remarkable. It is producing huge numbers of new neurons, far more than at any later point in your life. This process is called neurogenesis, and it is essential for learning language, recognizing faces, mapping space, and building the entire mental architecture your future self will think with. But all that explosive growth comes at a cost. New neurons inserted into existing circuits can disrupt the connections holding older memories in place. The same biological process that builds your mind also appears to quietly erase its earliest drafts. Patricia Bauer, a developmental psychologist at Emory University, has spent decades studying exactly how this plays out. Her research on deferred imitation, in which infants are shown a simple sequence of actions and then tested days, weeks, or even months later, proved that infants do encode memories and can retrieve them for a surprisingly long time. But her work also revealed something crucial. These early memories are unusually fragile, formed in a brain region that is still under heavy construction. Imagine trying to file important documents in an office where the filing cabinets themselves are still being built around you. Some documents survive. Most get lost in the renovation. Why would evolution design a brain this way? Would it not make more sense to simply remember everything from birth? Here is where the real twist arrives. Forgetting your earliest years is not a flaw in the system. It might be the system working exactly as intended. There is a deeper layer, too. Carol Peterson, a memory researcher at Memorial University of Newfoundland, has spent years tracking children's memories over time, asking the same kids to recall their earliest experiences again and again as they grow older. Her long-term work uncovered something genuinely counterintuitive. The age your earliest memory sits at is not fixed. It moves. Ask a 7-year-old for their first memory. Then ask the same child again at age 9, and the memory they describe is often a completely different one, sometimes years apart. Earliest memories are not a stable archive sitting untouched in a vault. They are a moving target, reorganized every time your sense of self gets reorganized. That detail matters more than it sounds. It suggests memory before the wall is not simply too weak to survive on its own. It is actively, repeatedly overwritten, as if your brain keeps renovating the same small room and quietly discarding the old furniture each time it does. So why does the wall sit where it does, almost always somewhere between 2 and 4 years old? Language offers one clue. Around that age, children begin to narrate their own lives. They start saying, "I went to the park," instead of just pointing toward the door. And once a child can put an experience into words, that experience becomes dramatically easier to store and later retrieve. Memory, it turns out, is not only about the hippocampus, it is about narrative. You do not just need to experience something, you need a story to hang it on. This is where culture enters the picture, and the findings get genuinely strange. Chi Wang, a psychologist at Cornell University, compared the earliest childhood memories of adults raised in different cultural environments. American adults, on average, recalled an earliest memory around age 3.5. Adults raised in cultures where parents narrate a child's day back to them constantly, asking detailed questions and retelling events, reported earliest memories close to a full year earlier than adults raised in cultures with sparser, less narrative-heavy parent-child conversation. The wall of infantile amnesia is not fixed in stone by biology alone. Talking to a child about their own life, in detail, again and again, appears to physically move the wall. Think about what that actually means. 2 children with identical brains, identical hippocampal development, identical genetics, could end up with earliest memories a full year apart, purely because of how often the adults around them said, "Remember when we went to the beach? What did you see? What happened after that?" The conversation itself becomes scaffolding the memory survives on. Without that scaffolding, even a vivid moment can simply collapse back into the renovation. The idea that childhood memory simply vanishes is not new. Sigmund Freud was the first to give the phenomenon its name, infantile amnesia, more than a century ago, though his explanation leaned on repression rather than biology. He believed children buried their earliest memories because they were too emotionally disturbing to keep. Modern neuroscience has mostly moved past that specific explanation, but Freud's underlying instinct, that something was being actively erased rather than simply never recorded in the first place, turned out to be closer to the truth than anyone expected at the time. Here is the part that should genuinely unsettle you. If your earliest memories can be rewritten, shifted, and partially erased by something as ordinary as conversation, what does that say about the memories you trust completely right now? The ones from last year, the ones from last week. Researchers studying adult memory have found that the same hippocampal flexibility, the same narrative reconstruction at work in early childhood, never fully switches off. It only slows down. Every time you retell a story from your own past, you are not replaying a recording stored untouched since the moment it happened. You are rebuilding it, slightly differently, using whatever emotional state and context surrounds you right now. The version of your 10th birthday you remember today may already be several quiet edits removed from whatever actually happened in that room. So why should any of this matter to you, decades past your own infantile amnesia wall, sitting here while the memory finishes its work in your mind? Because the same machinery that erased your earliest years is still quietly editing your most recent ones. The friend who insists they remember an argument completely differently than you do is not necessarily lying. Their hippocampus simply filed a different version, shaped by a different internal narrative, the same way yours filed a slightly different version of your second birthday than what actually occurred in that room. Family arguments about who said what, siblings disagreeing about how a childhood vacation really went, two people walking away from the same conversation with two different memories of it. None of this is dishonesty. It is the same construction process you experienced as a toddler, still running quietly in the background of every adult mind in the room. And there is something almost comforting, buried inside all of this strangeness. You were never broken for forgetting that you were once a baby. Your brain was not failing to hold on to anything. It was busy building the very structure that would one day let you sit here, hold a story in your mind, and understand what it even means to remember at all. That photograph in the drawer, the one with food on your face and someone laughing behind the camera, was never really lost because your brain malfunctioned somewhere along the way. It was the cost of construction, the price of becoming someone capable of remembering anything in the first place. So the next time someone hands you an old photo of yourself as a toddler and asks if you remember that day, you can tell them the truth. You do not remember the day. You were too busy building the brain that would spend the rest of your life remembering everything that came after it.